What's up, guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 2005 Mazda Tribute. Up front is a 2.3-liter inline-4, and down below is a 4-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this Mazda Tribute because I am a huge Mazda fan, and it is my personal goal to drive every Mazda ever made, and I've never driven a Mazda Tribute. And so that changes here today. We're going to be doing a deep dive into what makes this car tick, as well as the importance of this car now, given the retrospective 18 years later, about what this car turned into. And so I'm sure I'll have plenty of thoughts here today. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. Let's get back to that 2.3-liter inline-4 under the hood. Well, it is known as a Duratec engine, and this was an engine that was built for Mazda and Ford. We're going to get into it a lot later on, but this car is, for all intents and purposes, a Ford Escape. This car was manufactured by Ford for Mazda, as it literally says on the door sticker. Ford owned Mazda from the mid-70s up until 2015, and so this was one of those cars that came out of that conjoined venture, and really Ford ownership over Mazda. So that's very clear here with the engine. Like I said, paired to it, 4-speed automatic, it's fine, it's doing the job. Don't really care. And of course, last but not least, about the drivetrain, this is front-wheel drive. Now, you could also find all-wheel drive Mazda Tributes, and you could find all-wheel drive manual Mazda Tributes. So you could find these in the first generation with manual transmissions. If that's something you want to seek out, I highly recommend that you do. So how does it feel to drive a Mazda Tribute? Well, if you've ever driven a Ford from this era, you'll know exactly how it drives. The engine is out of a Ford Focus / Mazda 3. It just sits up a little bit higher. It is decently zippy. It's not the most sluggish thing I've ever driven, but it's also not really anything impressive. This is pretty close to the textbook definition of just a car. So with that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 4 gauges. Off to the left is my coolant temperature. Then I have my tachometer and speedometer, and off to the right is my fuel. That's it, clean and simple. On the steering wheel, we do have cruise control settings to the left and right, but again, a very, very simple steering wheel, big pillowy airbag in the center, what we've come to expect from this era. Off to the left, I do have a climate control vent and my power mirrors, as well as my gauge dimmer switch found down below. And then moving out of the door, we have our power windows, window locks, and power locks themselves. Moving into the center, we do have our hazard switch and factory Mazda radio, really Ford radio, volume and tune, CD player, not really much to talk about there. Then we do have buttons for our defrost and AC, and our climate controls down below that. Fan speed off to the left, where to send it in the center, temperature off to the right, with a little cigarette lighter up to the upper right above those climate controls. Then we do get a little cubby with another 12-volt outlet, so your power needs are definitely going to be met here in the Mazda Tribute. And then we have the shifter itself. On the side of the shifter, we do have a button for the overdrive. You can turn that on or off. And besides that, it's very plain and simple, straightforward from the early 2000s. Handbrake off to the right, and then we do have cup holders. So we will do a big friggin' bottle test here in the Mazda Tribute from 2005, and it normally fails. However, it says remove 4 large cups, and once you do that, the big friggin' bottle fits in the Mazda Tribute. I am so happy. This has to be one of the only Mazda product to pass the big friggin' bottle test, and yet it does here today on this sunny, sunny morning. Then we have a center console and the seats. Now, this is a more base model Tribute, so the seats are cloth. Not super comfortable. I don't really enjoy them or love them or anything like that, but they are holding me within the chassis of the vehicle. And that's, I guess, all I can really ask. I wouldn't want these in my living room if I had the opportunity. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so let's go do a back seat review. All right, so we're in the back of the 2005 Mazda Tribute, and I don't think I get a single amenity back here. Power windows, no rear climate vents. I guess I'm gonna freeze in the winters and have a heat stroke in the summers. No center console, I have grab handles. I guess that's, what I get. It's like getting socks for Christmas. It's kind of the bare minimum. So, it's fine back here. It is what it is. Nothing really too crazy to write home about. Here's the back seat of a 2005 Mazda Tribute. However, let's talk about the trunk. There's a little fun part about the tailgate. I can't imagine much more beyond that. Let's take a look. So around the back of the Mazda Tribute, we do have openable glass. So right here in the middle, there's a big grab handle. There's a little one over here. So you hit that and you can pull this up and just the rear glass opens. I love when cars do this. Now this one doesn't want to stay up. It's okay. It's old, it's tired. But very, very cool that you get this option here in the Mazda Tribute, and something you don't find on the modern CX-5, which I wish that they would give. Now, pull the big grab handle, pull this door all the way up, and here we are in the back of the Mazda Tribute. Again, no crazy features. We do have like a little holding area, I guess, over there. Some little storage options, but that's pretty much it. You can fold the second row flat, so if you do have bigger cargo, you can do that. Grab handle right here, pull it back down, and that is the rear end of the Mazda Tribute. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and the Mazda Tribute, I actually like. I actually think it does look decently rugged. This is more of the base model, like I said, so it has those unpainted bumpers, has that sort of off-roady type feel, and I like the look of it. Is it a Ford Escape that has been dressed up in Mazda clothing? 100%. And just visually looking at it, you can probably make those assumptions and draw those conclusions yourself. But I think it's a handsome automobile. I don't think it's ugly. I think the later gen of the Mazda Tribute is ugly, but we're not judging the previous gen on that today. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think? Finally driving a Mazda Tribute. I have wanted to drive one of these for so long because I used to see them all the time. I'm seeing them less and less. It's a Mazda product, and that is just so enticing to me as a person. Well, I've liked this experience. I mean, it's fine. It drives fine. It's not going to blow you away. It's a tall Ford Focus. That's all I could really expect. And I've driven Ford Escapes as well. Hey, drives just like that. But what I want to talk about towards the end of this video is the importance of the Mazda Tribute. So back in the early 1990s, Mazda put out their first SUV. It was a rebadged Ford Explorer. It was known as the Mazda Navajo, and it didn't sell all that well. People didn't really care for it. So in the early 2000s, they tried again with the Mazda Tribute. Again, another rebadged Ford product, this time the Escape instead of the Explorer. But by the time this came around, this car had grown so much that this is probably a similar size to the Navajo. But when Mazda put this out, it actually sold decent. It wasn't a top seller. It wasn't a record-breaking vehicle, but it did something very important. It allowed Mazda to learn how to make a small SUV. And from all of this, when Ford and Mazda started to split off from one another, Mazda started making the Mazda CX-5. And here's what the first-gen Mazda CX-5 allowed. It still had an optional manual transmission, one of the last small SUVs to be offered with that in the United States. And you could tell where it came from. This Mazda CX-5 looks a lot like this Mazda Tribute. You could tell that they learned from their experiences and formulated a new vehicle in the CX-5. And that car was good. I drove one with over 200,000 miles. It was wonderful. I've driven the manual one. It's wonderful. And then that allowed for Mazda to make the second gen Mazda CX-5, which is still currently in production. And that car is wonderful. I've driven almost every model year of it, almost every trim of it, and it's fantastic. My family has owned two, and we're looking for our third. I have gotten so many people in my life into Mazda CX-5s by giving them recommendations and saying, hey, this car is so good. And that wonderful automobile, what you're seeing now is a 2024 premium turbo or turbo premium Mazda CX-5. What a wonderful, wonderful car. You don't get that car without this Mazda Tribute. You don't get the wonderful CX-5 without all of the hard work and market research that the original Tribute gave to Mazda as a corporation. You don't get the modern CX-5 without Ford's interference 18 years ago. And so while this car might not be exciting, it might not be the coolest, flashiest automobile that I want to show up to at a movie premiere, it's an important one. It's a building block that allowed modern Mazda to thrive. And it just reiterates the fact that our modern cars were set in motion nearly 2 decades ago. The automotive industry is a long, treacherous game, but when you plant the seeds early, you eat very well later on. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Ted for letting me take out his Mazda Tribute, and I was so glad that Ted was able to get me behind the wheel and finally fulfill my bucket list of driving a Mazda Tribute. Ted's been absolutely wonderful. I've driven tons of his cars, and I very, very much look forward to working with him again in the future. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.